back to Shire Travels. This is part 2 of our Southwest WA road trip. If you missed last week's video, I'll leave a link in the description box below. Last week I left you at Busselton Jessie and now we are on to Margaret River. We had a very quick look in Dunsborough at some of the beaches there. It seemed like a very nice town. And then we started heading into what I'll call Margaret River proper. And I was really excited to head there because I am a sucker for a good beach. I'm talking white sand, clear, shallow, calm, turquoise water. I'd really built it up in my head just how nice Margaret River beaches were going to be. And luckily they did not disappoint. They were absolutely stunning. First beach that we went to was Meelup Beach. This is in the north of the Margaret River region. The car park there was pretty small. We did manage to find a spot for the motorhome, no problem. However, if you were going to be there, I guess in school holidays or on a weekend, it might be quite busy, so keep that in mind. I'm sure it's the same case for most of the beaches in the area. The water was very clear, it was calm. This was one of those rare days where there was absolutely no wind and I just couldn't believe how calm the water was. We spent a bit of time there, relaxing on the beach, having a swim, and then we walked down to the end where there's a bit of a rocky area. Because we were there to make content, we put our domestic hats on and took a heap of pictures. Our next stop was to Eagle Bay, which was equally as stunning. We parked up, no issues finding parking again, walked down the steps and we were instantly greeted by this beautiful yacht that was parked up in the clear water. The beach there was huge, and one thing that we found with most beaches, granted we were there in the middle of the week, was that there was no one else there. It was so quiet. I think as well, coming from Victoria, if we had these beaches in Victoria, they would be jam-packed all day, every day. After we had had a little bit of a look around Eagle Bay, we actually went to Eagle Bay Brewing and we had some lunch there. It was absolutely beautiful. Had some pizza, had some drinks, and then we decided to have a quick look at Bunker Bay. We didn't have a lot of time there, unfortunately. Similar to the rest of the beaches there, it was absolutely stunning and no one else there. The next time we come through this area, which will probably be on our big lap, I definitely want to spend, I think, about a week in Margaret River and kind of have a holiday within a holiday and explore all the other beaches there and spend a bit more time. On this trip, because we were there to, I guess, work, we really didn't have much time to relax and just sit on the beach doing nothing. We were there to create content as part of the Follow the Sun relay. One reason why we were rushing as well was because we were actually going to do a self-guided tour through Mammoth Cave. We booked onto the very last tour of the day, which I think would have been around 4:30 in the afternoon, and we were the only people there. I think if you're going to do a tour there, they can be quite busy. If you book onto either the first one or the last one of the day, you might as well be the only people on the tour. It was a self-guided audio tour, the information visitor centre when we got there. They gave us our headphones and our little audio guide, told us how to work it, how long it would take, where we would be walking around, etc. And then we headed into the cave and we could just go at our own pace. Now, for the most part, I was only kind of half listening to the audio tour. They do give you an awful lot of information, and I feel like I'm more of a visual person rather than an audio person. We walked around the cave, it was beautiful. With this cave, you actually come out in a separate section to where you went in, and you do have to walk through quite a narrow bit and then cross over the road and walk back to it. A little bit confusing. There's heaps of different caves in the area you can book online. We also did another cave tour, which I'll talk about soon. Lots of different ones to see. They all offer something a little bit different. We chose to do this one because it was one which was self-guided, which we thought would be a little bit different to some of the others that were there. We then went and checked into our accommodation. Our accommodation was right on Margaret River, which was pretty cool. Lots of nice birds there and ducks. Sat by the river, had a couple of drinks and looked at all the local bird life. The caravan park itself was nice enough. Really nice being on the river. It didn't really have many other amenities as far as I could think. I don't think it had like a pool or anything like that. But it was nice enough and it was quite central to all the sites in Margaret River. The next day we hopped on a tour with the Margaret River Discovery Co. Before coming to Margaret River, I had just looked online at all the different tours available in the area, and this one kept coming up as being really highly recommended on places like TripAdvisor. I had a bit of a look at the itinerary and thought, yep, this is perfect. This is going to give us a bit of a taste of what Margaret River has to offer. Being quite short on time, it was going to take us to a whole different range of places. We got picked up in the morning by Sean, who runs the Margaret River Discovery Co. There are only 6 of us on the tour, so he picked us up in his 7-seat Discovery, and the first part of the tour is going canoeing on Margaret River. A lot of people coming to the Margaret River area don't seem to spend any time actually on Margaret River. It's really fun to get out on the water. It's one of the things I really loved about this tour because it's something completely different. Most people who come to Margaret River don't usually go there to go canoeing. You're usually there for the beaches and the wineries, etc. We went and did our canoeing down the river. It was beautiful, very safe, very relaxed. The river itself is very calm. Sean helps you get in and out of the boats, etc. You also take pictures of you on your own cameras as well, which is really good. Because it was such a small group, everyone really got to know everyone who was on the tour, told us all the history of the area. Really informative, just as you would expect from your tour guide. We then headed to one of the beaches in Margaret River to grab a cup of coffee, bit of a refresh after all our hard work canoeing. We then went out to this beautiful spot on the water, which had a very small waterfall running down it. Really nice spot. We actually sat there and had something to eat, had our morning tea. Again, one of those spots which, unless you're on a tour, you would just never know it was there. Next up on the tour was Fraser Gallop Estate. Tom and I aren't really into our wines, but we knew coming to Margaret River, you need to go to a winery. There are so many there, we would have been quite overwhelmed if we had to choose one ourselves. Therefore, it was quite good to be on a tour where they choose for you. Fraser Gallop Estate, absolutely stunning. We drove in down the driveway, you've got all the vines, and then they've got a huge big house at the end of it. Very beautiful. We got to do a behind the scenes tour there, have a look where all the barrels are, the winemaking process, all the winemaking gear. They had someone from Fraser Gallop tell us all about the harvest, what they were doing at that specific time of year, etc. It was really interesting. We then got to do a private lunch in the barrel room as well, which was really cool. The lunch was great. I think from memory it might have been kind of a grazing lunch. They also had lots of wine there, as you would expect. We got to pair the wine with different food. It was fantastic. We then got to go to another area where they do the tastings, and we could buy a bottle of wine if we wanted to. It was a really beautiful spot. Final stop on our trip was walking a section of the Cape to Cape track. This is a track that runs from Cape in the top of the Margaret River region down to the one at the bottom, which I think is Cape Leeuwin. We only walked a very small section of it and it was absolutely beautiful. There were lots of wildflowers there. It runs along the ocean. You're up on the cliffs. You can see all the waves below. We also saw a couple of kangaroos there. A very beautiful spot, and again, somewhere which, if we hadn't been on this tour, I would not have ever thought to come there. The other thing that was quite cool as well, Sean, being a local, knows everyone there, knows the time of day that the shark spotting helicopter is coming past that section of the Cape. While we were sat there, the helicopter came over, they flew down quite low, and we got a few pictures and stuff, which was pretty cool. And then that was the end of our trip and we got dropped back to our accommodation. This was a fantastic tour. It's one of those tours which, if you're not quite sure what to see in Margaret River, if you think there's just so many wineries and so many beaches and things to do, it's only one car, so it's very small tours, very personalized. You get to know each other on the tour. Highly recommend it. Check out TripAdvisor. All the reviews there are fantastic. I'm pretty sure Margaret River Discovery Co is in like the top 1% of tour operators in WA, but just how good the tour is and the reviews that they have had. Next day we were having a look at another cave. This time we were going to Jewel Cave. This is part of a guided tour with a group of other people as opposed to Mammoth Cave. Jewel Cave I think is known as one of their show caves, which means that the stalagmites and stalactites are particularly beautiful compared to other caves. And I have to say, I would agree with them. Some of the rock formations in there were amazing. In particular, this one, which looks like lots of groups of trees. At one point, the tour guide got all of us to switch off our torches, and they switched off all the lights in the cave as well. And it was really cool because it's not often you get to experience absolute pitch black. That tour probably went for about an hour. Compared to some of the other cave tours in the area, this one was quite accessible. There are stairs there, and yes, you do have to watch your head in some places, but I know there are other caves where you do have to do a little bit of rock scrambling. You do have to kind of get down and crawl through places. This one was not like that at all. There were some places which might have been a little bit narrow to get through, but nothing to worry about if you are a bit claustrophobic. Another thing we did in the Margaret River area was go to the Margaret River Chocolate Factory. When you walk in, they have the big bowls of chocolate samples that you can help yourself to. Lots of beautiful chocolates there. They have all different shapes and styles and designs. Worth checking out. We then started to head to the southern area of the Margaret River region. We went down to Cape Leeuwin, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, lighthouse, and had a look there. That was quite nice to see. I think it's always good when you can see these sorts of things without having to pay. There was another lighthouse, which must be up at Cape Naturalis, and I think you had to pay maybe $8 per person to have a look at the lighthouse, which we didn't think was worth it. Next, we made our way to Hamlin Bay because we heard about all the rays that you can see there. Now, I've watched a lot of people on YouTube go there and they don't see anything, and that's just what I assumed would happen with us. We were walking around for a while, didn't see anything, and then all of a sudden we saw, I think there were 3 rays that were hanging around. I think there might have been an eagle ray, a spotted ray, and I think a bull ray was the big one. It was very cool. There were some people there that were feeding them, which is why they were hanging around. And it's quite bizarre. They are kind of like weird underwater dogs in a way. You kind of just put your feet and hands in and they just come straight up to you and basically crash into you. And that bull ray, as you can see in these pictures, was huge. And with the waves and everything, sometimes I thought I was going to get knocked over. A really interesting experience. We spent quite a bit of time there just patting these rays, interacting with them in the water. And then eventually when the people who were feeding them ran out of food, we left. I'm so glad we got to see them because, like I said, a lot of people go and they don't see them at all and they think, hey, is it a bit of a myth? They are there. I think we did, from memory, Google the best time to go there. It might have been around about 10 o'clock in the morning. After we'd been to Hamlin Bay, it was time to start heading out of the area and closer to Albany. We visited the Zaglossa tree and there's the bicentennial tree, I think it's called. They're the ones that have the metal prongs in them, no sort of safety net or anything, and you can climb all the way to the top. It's about 200 meters high or something ridiculous. At the top of the tree, there's like a platform there, and I think they used to be used as fire lookout towers. Very scary. I could only make it up about 3 rungs before it just could not deal with the fact that there's just nothing to stop you falling down and you can just put your hands and arms straight through the rungs. Tom went up a little bit higher up just for a picture. There was someone actually coming down who saw us kind of taking pictures and stuff and got into an absolute panic, thinking that they were going to have to try and pass someone, and they were shouting down to us, don't come up, don't come up. If you are brave, then check that one out. Next stop was to the Valley of the Giants treetop walk. There are lots of beautiful tall trees in the area, and there's a platform that you can walk on which takes you right up into the canopy. Walking up on the platform there is an additional cost, but from memory, the area that you can walk around at the bottom and see some really huge trees, pretty sure that is free. Worth checking out if you're driving through that area. The next stop was Denmark. We were only there for one night. The only place we really saw in the area was Green's Pool and Elephant Rocks. A really nice spot. When we were there, it was pretty cold. Neither of us felt up to going swimming there. Green's Pool is a very nice pool though. It's very protected, shallow, an ideal swimming spot, particularly if you have young kids. We hung around there for a little bit again. Put our Dometic hats on and took a few pictures. We then had to walk over to Elephant Rocks, which is quite nice. Took a few pictures and then headed on our way. As we're driving to Albany, and I'm pretty sure I've said Albany and Albany different every single time I've said it, I just don't know which way is the right way. We stopped at Swiss Annie's Fine Chocolates. This was just a random place we were driving past and thought, yeah, we'll stop in. Had beautiful gardens as well and some very delicious chocolates. As we had a bit of time to burn before we could check into our accommodation in Albany, we went to Lime Burners. This is a whiskey distillery, quite a small one. We stopped in there and did a tasting and bought a few bottles of their whiskey. Really delicious. If you like your whiskey, your spirits, pop in there and grab a bottle. There's heaps of parking. It's on one of the main roads as you drive near Albany. Another place we had a quick stop at was the Gap and Natural Bridge. This is in one of the national parks there. They have a platform that you can look over this gap in the cliff and the waves crash down below. There's also a natural bridge there, which you might have guessed is a natural bridge made out of the rock where the waves have crashed below. The only thing that was a little bit frustrating there was we bought a parks pass for the week as we knew we'd be heading to a few different national parks, and the parking there was $12. Now, you are not going to be spending the whole day there. There is a few boardwalks, there's a few things to see. At most, you might be there for an hour, and it costs $12 on top of your natural parks pass, which I think is a complete rip-off. Then it was on to our final destination, which was Albany. We stayed at the Big Four Middleton, which was right on the beach. It was beautiful. It was a short walk into Albany town centre itself. It wasn't too bad, a little bit uphill, but it was perfectly manageable. The beach right outside the caravan park was really nice. We didn't swim there ourselves, it was a bit too cold, but beautiful white sand. There was a jetty, there was a few places that you could walk. There's also quite close to a few pubs and eateries as well, which was great because being in the motorhome, it can be a little bit annoying having to pack everything up in order to drive and get some dinner. To be able to walk was great. We didn't have too much time in Albany, we didn't get to see it that much, but we did go to the National ANZAC Centre. It is set in Albany at a very specific location where in 1914, more than 40,000 Australian and New Zealand soldiers left to fight in the First World War. All the information there is about how Albany was like that central point, why everyone came there to leave and the ships that left, what they took with them, the stories of the people who were on the ships. So much information there. You could really spend hours there reading all the information that they had. They also have areas outside that you can go and explore. Definitely worth checking out. That afternoon we headed back to the caravan park. The weather wasn't too bad. We hung out by the pool there. That caravan park had really good facilities. We packed everything up, cleaned the motorhome, because the next morning we were heading all the way back to Perth. The drive back to Perth, we actually took the inland road. It is a highway which is almost like a straight line between Albany and Perth. It takes about 4 hours to get there. We had to drive the motorhome back there. I think it was being serviced by Apollo in Perth, and then I think one of their staff was going to drive it back to Albany in order for it to start its next leg on the Follow the Sun relay. Made our way to Perth, we dropped Winnebago back, we hopped on our plane, headed back to Melbourne, had a very nice flight back. We used our frequent flyer points to fly business, which was beautiful. We really enjoyed this trip. We love WA as a state. We can see why people spend 6 months, a year, 2 years just traveling Western Australia alone. There is so much to see here. I thought we saw a lot in a week, but really you could spend a couple of months down in that southwest corner and there is so much to see there. As I mentioned before, we do plan on heading back through here on our big lap and spending a bit more time. I think about a week in the Margaret River area would be plenty. Albany, Denmark, Mandurah, Rockingham, Bunbury, all quite nice. Would I go back to all those places? Maybe if we're driving through, stop and have a bit of a look. Although I do think around Denmark and Albany, we didn't actually see that much there. I think there's actually heaps more beaches and a lot more history to discover there. Would highly recommend it. If you are short on time, if you only have a week, this just goes to show you just how much you can see in that area. As always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. Subscribe to see where we're heading next, and I'll see you in the next one.